In April, I released a 2-hour video discussing mental illness and trauma and the difficult, confusing, and often stagnant process of healing through the framing device of various horror game characters. One of the major things I wanted to express with the mental illness video is the discomfort of not knowing, the ambivalence of wanting to move forward, but being unsure where forward leads or even what direction that is. Sometimes you're just treading water, just barely keeping your lips above the undulating surface, and maybe that's okay. Some days I'd like to go back to how things were. Most days I'm just lingering among those tugging waves. It would be nice though if there were people next to you watching you tread, maybe even treading with you, not screeching and flailing to selfishly pull you from the water, but just really trying to observe and to understand and to be there in the present. Sometimes all you need is a witness. Sometimes you just want to feel held. In the mental illness video, I honed in on the loneliness epidemic in abstract terms, the bed of isolation that people suffering, people like James, people like Angela, maybe even many of us in the real world find ourselves lying in. I decided that community and love were two of the most important forces to meet a person in that moment, to combat the still silence of separation from other people, and I explored how community and love are often denied those who need it most. In order to make that video, I replayed the medium, Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill 2 Remake, and Resident Evil Requiem. I didn't want to replay Silent Hill F because while I think many of that game's themes were relevant, specifically that of Hinako's psychological breakdown in a world full of people she felt she couldn't trust, I ultimately decided it wasn't necessary to say what I wanted to say. I also ended up watching Return to Silent Hill for the video, and while at points I found the movie very, extremely hilarious, oh my fucking god, what were they even thinking? Mary Crane? I don't want this current video to be a run-of-the-mill Silent Hill movie bad reaction slop thing. I want to talk about Return to Silent Hill, things I liked and disliked, and how watching it helped me realize several blind spots in my last essay, namely, not all community is good. Community can be toxic, controlling, neglectful, and deleterious to the self. What happens when community is not enough to meet the needs of a lonely, despairing person? What happens when that community fails or dissolves? Worse still, what happens when a person who really needs a community finds themselves in the wrong one which preys upon them, parasitically sucks them dry, and transforms them into someone altogether unrecognizable? In the mental illness video, I also talked about a young woman named Yamu, who's been documenting her own journey with schizoaffective disorder.
There's a lot more to schizophrenia than hallucinations or delusions. In fact, as you grow older, often the bigger problem with schizophrenia becomes something called negative symptoms, which means issues with energy, issues with motivation, issues with concentration. Basically, trouble functioning. Your functioning declines, and that's exactly what happened to me.
Yamu was homeless, living in a psych ward at the time that I found her channel. Now she has stable housing and seems to be doing really well for herself. Her channel's exploded in growth, even leading to her getting sponsored, and now she's taking her creative work in some new directions.
Stop eating my hair! Hello everyone, this is Cyber Yamu.
Yamu? In the mental illness video, I also talked about a young woman named Yamu.
Hello everyone, this is Cyber Yamu.
Fuck! It's hard to imagine such a fitting, positive outcome after so much suffering, especially in this day and age.
And I got on a new medication, which actually really helps me. It's called Abilify. I'm on 20 milligrams, and it's honestly been a miracle drug for me. I kind of lost hope in antipsychotics for a long time because I kept trying new medications over and over with different dosages, and none of them seemed to do anything. So I kind of lost my hope in medication, but Abilify really restored it.
I still have difficulty watching her videos because of my own pathology, but I've written to Yamu and she seems like a smart, empathetic, and very kind person. So go and check her out. She deserves all the support her channel gets. In that video, I also talked about a woman under the pseudonym Q, who I dated briefly and who I believe suffered with severe schizophrenia before vanishing after being evicted earlier this year. I think it's the most important video, maybe the most important thing I've ever made, and it would provide a lot of context for this video if you haven't watched it yet. At the very least, it's a voyeuristic look into my life, the person I am, the person I was, and the person I try to be in the face of immense pain and hardship. I won't spend too much time on it in this video because this one's not about her, though a lot of it, specifically the motifs of longing and grief, is relevant. As far as I know, at the time of writing, Q is seemingly alive and well. I actually legitimately froze when her face suddenly popped up again. It was an unreal shock. And of course, I'm happy and relieved that as far as I can tell, she seems to be safe and healthy. In the Yamu section of the last video, I talked about how optimistic Yamu's story made me, how Q might get better and start a new life. It's nice to see that Cyber Yamu has some hope and a promise of a better tomorrow. I wish her well, and it makes me think that maybe it's possible that Q's still kicking and things will get better for her someday. She'll recover and lead a new life, one I won't be a part of, but one worthy of the beautiful and amazing person that I knew. All those feelings still hold true. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss her, and that seeing her face again didn't fill me with immense pain, longing, and grief. After seeing her, I tried to reach out again, which I probably shouldn't have, and I went through a severe emotional breakdown. I stopped eating and stopped masturbating for days. I couldn't sleep, felt like vomiting, had trouble breathing. At the time of writing, while the more extreme symptoms have passed, it's a breakdown I'm still firmly in the grip of. To put it bluntly, I'm not doing well. I'm a deeply emotional, and some might say clingy person. My therapist thinks I might have BPD. I mean, that's the setup to a joke, right? An obsessive, emotional, chronically alone loser with abandonment issues who loves too hard, and a paranoid nihilist who doesn't trust anyone walk into a bar. Anyway, I'm aware some of this is normal bad breakup heartbreak. I mean, obviously. I miss her personality, I miss her face, I miss her voice, her body. I miss the way she sat in her chair, the delicate way her fingers curled when she rolled her next joint, the expressions she made when she talked and laughed and during sex. I miss her apartment, I miss being in her space, in her presence. I miss hanging out with her and all the walks and meals and conversations. I miss learning about her and being by her side even through the tough times. But something I think a lot of people unintentionally miss is that this wasn't just a bad breakup. I watched this person completely, violently split apart in real time and was powerless to stop it or even to convince her that it was happening. I spent months thinking she might and had killed herself. I've had several nightmares where we met up, we're friends again, maybe even lovers, and suddenly she breaks down and starts attacking me. And through all of it, the mental anguish and the self-disillusion wasn't just happening to her. While I likened Q to Angela and myself to James, Thomas, and Marianne several times through the last video essay, I also, maybe even subconsciously, hinted in the last video that there are many ways in which I feel like Angela too. I felt a million times over the last few years that Q and I are one and the same, or that I've turned into the person she was at times when we were together. Bitter, sad, nihilistic. So many days I've broken into random tears crying, "Nobody loves me." So many times I've shrunken away from the world and chased sex and alcohol just to quiet my grieving mind for a little while. Even now, I feel lost, distrustful of everyone, isolated and broken. Q and I had both been spinning in space, dizzy and with no destination set. And now I feel frostbitten, numb with frenzy and cold. Selfishly, she hurt me, physically and emotionally, and I wish there were some acknowledgement of that from someone with skin in the game. Or, I don't know, accountability? I wish I could know she wouldn't do the same to someone else. I feel bad admitting this, but there's a part of me, a small part, that's so spiteful, so hurt, so angry, that I wish the worst for her, hope she gets back part of the pain she caused me. And there are other difficult feelings still that I don't really feel comfortable expressing here. But I know that's not what I really want. The truth is, as I said in the last video, I still love her, present tense. I wish there was some understanding that I worried for her and tried my best to care for her when no one else was around, and in the end, she still hated me. I was attacked and told to die and to kill myself and called a stalker and pathetic. I wish I could know her mind was all right after all that. I also miss her, as I've said, and I wish we could talk and be friends again. I miss sharing memories with her. I wish I could know how her mind was feeling, that I could be there for her if she ever got sad or lonely again. Most of all, I just can't stomach how meaningless all of it was. As I've said in the original video, none of it made us stronger or better or happier. There was nothing to learn from it all, just a torrent of uncertainty and anxiety and trauma flooding, crushing, breaking down everything that stood before it. And in its wake, no recognition of what occurred or what was lost. I'm just expected to not talk about it anymore, to forget it ever happened. And again, selfishly, there's this rotten sense in my heart that forgetting might be easier for her, that she's already done it, fashioning me as the demon from which she escaped. She might begin to heal and move on while I lay stuck in this miasma of malaise and stagnation. The more I try to make sense of the memories, the scars, to find some tangible heft in the acidulous sludge, some purchase to pull upright, some ground to stand on beneath it all, the more I feel as she had done, like the world betrayed me and left me behind, like no one could, would, or ever wanted to understand. I have this one memory from back in high school that I don't think I've ever told anyone about. I had a friend, let's call her E. E and I don't talk anymore, but I'm sure it'd be cordial if we did. We were semi-close back then, joked around, sat next to each other at homeroom. I'd even been to her home, met her mom, and rode around in their car on one occasion. One night we were texting back and forth. I'm not sure what we were talking about. I don't think it's relevant. But at one point she says she thinks she wants to kill herself. I don't remember what I sent back. This was probably the first time anyone had ever expressed something like this to me. But eventually E stops responding. So I panic, send her text after text, and then eventually I call her home. E's mother picks up the phone. She says, "Don't you ever call my house this late again," then hangs up. E was fine when I saw her back at school. I don't know why she stopped responding. Maybe she just fell asleep. I never got to explain to E's mom how worried I was. E and I never talked about that conversation. But sometimes it comes back to memory alongside all the grief and terror of my memories of loving Q. And I wonder to myself, if I'm the only one who remembers, what was the point of any of it? Return to Silent Hill was, I thought, a fan movie, like that Spider-Man Lotus thing from a few years ago, but it's been co-signed by Konami, and it's even executive produced and composed by Akira Yamaoka, who's apparently composed for basically every single Silent Hill project, so I think that's official enough. It's a film adaptation of the narrative of Silent Hill 2, and it takes quite a few liberties with the source material.
Catch me!
What?
This makes it feel more like a retelling of an old fairy tale than a straight-up remake of Silent Hill 2 for a different medium. And you know what? That's fine. Going forward, I think I want to approach all remakes with that frame of mind, the same way Hansel and Gretel can be retold a million times in a million different ways, some compelling, some not so much.
Hello there, boys and girls. I'm Oscar, and I'm going to tell you the story of Hansel and Gretel.
All you're interested in is sex.
If that was all I thought of, I'd pick up a prostitute.
I think we should be able to hold video game and film stories to that same standard. The unfortunate reality is that due to the nature of films and games as products first and as works of culturally relevant art second, we don't view them in the same timeless, transient way that we do a Brothers Grimm tale. We're more concerned with fandom and other niche communities and taking ownership of experiences in ways that ultimately only serve soulless corporate machines. But the same way other artists can cover songs they love and have that cover breathe new life and imagination into a familiar tune, we should allow video games and films the space to transform and be reworked, Return to Silent Hill may kind of suck, but its existence doesn't stain, ruin, or otherwise nullify the existence of Silent Hill 2. They can and should be allowed to coexist. Despite all its flaws, and it has many, there were things about Return to Silent Hill that I found compelling, especially as I thought about it more after watching. And for a film to stick with me in such a way means that it at least did something right. It certainly is not a forgettable experience. As with Silent Hill 2, we follow James Sunderland, but not the James we're familiar with. While this James has some similar qualities, namely an endearing earnestness, along with alcoholism and a bullheaded conviction to find his Mary, he also works as a distinct iteration of the Silent Hill 2 protagonist, and not just because of a difference in performance. James is written as a much more redeemable character in the remake. He's not as horny, not as violent, and there's a sort of greater good through line to his relationship with Mary. Return to Silent Hill is less psychological than the original game. It feels concerned more with the aesthetics of horror and with justifying the character's emotional responses. We get more explicit backstory in this retelling. James is an artist who drives like an absolute asshole to the tune of Simple and Clean from Kingdom Hearts. We see how he met Mary and snippets of their relationship.
There are parts of me you haven't seen.
In this iteration, Mary is the daughter of a preacher, Joshua Crane, who's like the most important man in Silent Hill for some reason. This means that, for some other reason, Heaven's Night is now no longer a strip club, but instead like some wannabe grunge, wannabe hip, pseudo-bar conference lounge for the most dull, bougie, Lower East Side Manhattan millennials imaginable. I'm sorry, but something about this set just pisses me off. It gives me PTSD flashbacks of all the glorified networking events disguised as fun club hangouts I used to attend. It feels like I'm about to sit through a 6-hour-long work training on a Saturday. The space makes sense given Mary's background in this interpretation, but I feel personally attacked by this vibe. Okay, fine, because I know you're all waiting for this. Let's do it. Let's rip off the band-aid. There's a lot of shit that I don't like about this film. The CG is overused. CG objects almost never feel like they belong in the space. The whole thing is maybe too bright, too colorful. Maybe the colors are just too stark, too saturated in a way that makes the spaces feel not eerie, but fake in certain scenes. James's monologuing feels forced and unconvincing, even if I absolutely understand the grief and longing underneath.
Our town. Our love. It was here. It was everywhere. And now they keep telling me to let go. To move on. But how could I ever do that? When you're calling me.
Mary's new backstory is fucking stupid and underexplored. I'll get to that. The town's new backstory is even dumber. I'll get to that too. I hate how generic James's and Mary's romance feels at times.
The girl of my dreams. The love of my life.
I hate the film's depiction of Angela. I'll get to that as well. I don't like its depiction of Eddie. I don't like how every side character in this film is depicted as a stereotypical crazed homeless lunatic. I feel like this had to be intentional, but the film will simultaneously depict Silent Hill as stuck in time with an old radio and a box TV and VHS tapes, but still maintain a modern aesthetic. Like James, in the present day, has a smartphone, but they say Mary only died a few months ago.
She's been dead for months now. You know that.
And their home and all the other buildings have a distinctly modern architectural style. I don't know why, but the name Mary Crane is just so funny to me.
Mary? Mary Crane?
Mary Crane.
What the fuck did they do to Heaven's Night? The establishing shot of the hospital nurses is so funny, like James and Maria just walked into a flash mob. Maria looks a little silly, like she's headed to a cosplay convention or a punk rock concert in the 90s. James's therapist is mean and judgmental and kinda sucks and violates HIPAA.
I've worked with vets, all kinds of trauma. But this is different. He won't let me in at all.
How long have you been treating him?
Almost a year. But it's gotten worse.
That woman, Mary, she was everything to him. Since he lost her, it's like he lost his grip on reality and his desire to regain it. Mary died after their breakup, and he just won't accept it.
The soundtrack's forgettable. The way James defeats Maria and Pyramid Head feels very silly. The cult angle is whack. This domestic violence scene is weird. I don't really like how blameless James is, and I'm probably forgetting some things. To be clear, I don't care how faithful this film is to the original. Like I said before, I'm holding all remakes as reinterpretations now. There can be bad reinterpretations, but catering to fandom wouldn't make this film good. Both Five Nights at Freddy's films, for instance, catered so obsessively to fandom that like making a good coherent movie seemed to be last on the priority list for Scott Cawthon and his merry band of misfits.
Some people say that, but you know, it's just a theory.
Are you being paid by the word?
Also, side note, when the first FNAF movie came out, I remember people dismissively saying, well, of course they couldn't make a film centered around the camera mechanic, and like, why not? There's already a really good film called Searching that came out before FNAF and did that exact thing. That's the level of inventiveness and experimentation you miss out on when you're so singularly focused on maintaining the capital L lore and not on expressing something fresh and interesting, bringing new ideas to an old formula. Like, yeah, the animatronics are pretty. Yeah, Silent Hill 2 Remake looks beautiful, but when you don't have the chops to bring artistry to an adaptation, you just end up copying trends and ultimately saying nothing, polishing nothing, the superficial gilding of old, stale ideas. This is why Return to Silent Hill feels the need to flourish so often.
You left her all.
The jump scares, the stingers, the odd dialogue, the eerie performances, the cackling, the creepy child, the creature roars. It's just going through the motions of established horror tells. There are things I like about Return to Silent Hill though. I like seeing flirty, sexy Mary. It's a side of her in James that's only implied in the original games. A lot of the practical set design, especially of the Silent Hill welcome gate, looks really, really good. I like the shots of the ash-covered town, even if I think the film blows its load too early by introducing this element immediately. I like what they did with the roaches, making the most annoying fucking enemy in any video game ever something of an oppressive force, surprisingly at odds with the other abominations we see. Even though the CG itself looks bad, I do kinda like the creature designs, especially the lying figures. And something about this weird ass titty spider thing that isn't in the original game, I don't know, it does something to me. Not in a weird way, I swear. And there are uncanny CG jiggle physics too. It's just all sort of mesmerizing, isn't it? Not in a weird way, but like if this were in a video game, I kind of like it. I said not in a weird way. I actually like that the movie didn't just try to retell the same story like Bloober's remake did. Some of the film's homages to the original feel off to me even, like they're forced in to legitimize this whole exercise.
What do you mean save her? Save her from what?
Stay where you are!
All right, I'm not trying to hurt you.
That's why even the music that's arranged directly from Silent Hill 2 feels weak and unearned. Although I think the film on its own terms goes off the rails, I like that it goes off the rails. In fact, a lot of my issues with the film arise because it tries to adhere so closely to the source material in some instances and strays heavily from it in others, creating this harsh clash of ideas and themes and muddied symbolism that feels largely unintelligible when I try to step back and piece it all together.
You should have seen it. No one could get their ass in gear to react in time. Poor fucks. Whole town was rotten before anyways, but this was something else. The fires, the water, everybody going insane, bleeding to death out in the streets. All that crazy shit happened, and then these things start to show up.
Mostly what captures me about this film, what I've been ruminating on, is its ending. It may not have been intentional, but there's something so intensely dark and almost brilliant about it that I can't quite get it out of my head. But before we get to that, let's talk about Mary. Mary in this film serves the same role as Lillian from The Medium. She's tragedy personified, the almost perfect victim, and in playing that role, she loses any real sense of identity or agency. Predictably, as it did in The Medium with Marianne, this turns James into a sort of messiah, taking on Mary's trauma and pain to ultimately free her from it. I mean, she's literally begging for death the same way that Lillian did.
Tell me how I can help you.
You know. He's lived inside me for so long. I don't want him there anymore.
I can't do that.
I want to be free. Please, James. Please. Help me now.
This didn't work for me in The Medium, but it almost works for me in this film because of the inclusion of society's influences on Mary. Her senses of self and control are broken down by the workings of an oppressive cult.
What the fuck was that?
Sorry, they just showed up.
Wait, they just showed up? 20 people just showed up? Again? They're fucking weird, Mary.
They're my family, James. They took me in after my father died.
But unfortunately, this also makes Mary's story very, very stupid. For those who don't know, Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 3, the games, are vastly different from Silent Hill 2, and I think that's one of the reasons the second one is considered a standout classic among the three these days. I haven't replayed them in full for this video, but as I remember and understand them, 1 and 3 center largely around the actions of a cult which orchestrates or at least works alongside the horror and evil we see in the town. Silent Hill 2 focuses much more on the personal, guilt, grief, anger, and yearning, and that's what makes it so special. I remember playing through Silent Hill 1 for the first time and feeling extremely underwhelmed when the cult angle was introduced. It just sort of feels like a cop-out, especially if the inner workings, interpersonal drama, and politics of the cult aren't fleshed out or explored. This isn't always the case, but cults tend to be narrative shorthand for they just did it because they're weird and evil and bad. It often feels two-dimensional and gives you less to think about. I believe the first 3 games all take place in the same universe, therefore in the same town of Silent Hill, so Return to Silent Hill seems to be applying the cult angle of the other games to James's and Mary's story. The way they've achieved this is by completely, absolutely butchering every character in this fucking movie, like literally dead, all of them, replaced with pastiches of people vaguely familiar pantomiming human emotion, and also replaced with various copies of Mary. Now, Angela is Mary, and Laura is Mary, and Maria, I guess, is Mary too, but like a different fake kind. Her full name is literally Mary Angela Laura Crane. I audibly laughed when I first saw this shot of the tombstone, and like I said, something about the name Mary Crane just fucks me up. If this is her actual canon name, I don't care. You don't care either. Let's all just stop pretending. In Silent Hill 2, the video game, most of the creatures are projections of James's psyche. Faceless women simultaneously sexualized and adorned in hospital equipment. Straitjackets, nurses' uniforms, hospital beds. In Return to Silent Hill, though, I'm pretty sure almost all the humanoid monsters are representations of Mary, like Angela and Laura. The lying figure, a sickened Mary shooting toxic ooze. The frame of Mary's hospital bed trapping Mary within. A ass titty spider Mary, I guess. But not Pyramid Head though, he's still James. This creates the sense that there are like dueling Silent Hills, 2 other worlds that are Z-fighting, struggling for the same limited space. One is James's Silent Hill, where Inception style, his subconscious populates that realm with an idealized version of Mary, and with Pyramid Head, a version of himself that doesn't really make sense in this interpretation. The other Silent Hill would then have to be, well, it can't be Eddie's because it just doesn't make any sense. I don't think it's this homeless dude's, And Angela and Laura are just Mary, so I think the other Silent Hill is Mary's in this interpretation, which would make all of the monsters Mary's monsters, manifesting from various fears. The lying figure, as Mary sees herself bound by her own flesh, her body's fluid spewing and burning everything around her, the flesh lip, a bed frame barring the dying Mary inside, the nurses, faceless horrors made of stone who surrounded Mary as she lied sick, a ass-titty spider Mary. This raises some questions though. Mainly, can a person's Silent Hill persist after their death? And can two Silent Hills exist at once? Can one person see into another's Silent Hill? But there's also the third layer, the ashen, decaying town itself.
It started with the fires in the summer. Tore through the forest. Summer's still burning. And then came the rains. Floods overran the water treatment plant. When water gets contaminated, people don't stick around.
This is the layer where the roaches swarm about and where Eddie and this homeless man exist. And it also seems to exist in simultaneity with the others as we see the roaches devour the lying figures. And Eddie in this iteration says he can see Pyramid Head and the other monsters.
Oh shit. You did it, didn't you, Jimmy? You woke him up.
And there's also the fourth layer where this town is actually fine and alive and James's shitty therapist is there and everything's clean and working.
What's going on? Where am I? Where am I?
Brookhaven Hospital, Silent Hill.
I'm inclined to say that this is reality, like the real world, but there are some things about this layer that make me not so sure. The specter of Mary Angela Laura Crane enthralls The specter of Mary Angela Laura Crane enthralls the town, and as James falls between these realms, heading deeper toward the nexus between them, Mary tries to warn him to stay away. Mary, in this interpretation of Silent Hill 2's story, is the daughter of Joshua Crane, a preacher who built this town.
Joshua Crane. Doesn't quite do it justice when you say it out loud.
He changed our lives.
Mary's family. They built this town, gave us purpose.
Many of the town's residents worship Crane religiously. In their sycophancy, they snare Mary in rituals where they groom and violate her, drinking blood which spews from her body. The cult celebrated when Crane tortured Mary as a child, injected her with debilitating poison, and raped her. Because Angela and Mary are now the same character, Mary is now the one who's been sexually assaulted by her father. The abstract daddy's design is more excessive in this one than in Silent Hill 2 or the remake, and this turns one of the most compelling facets of Silent Hill 2 original into the meaningless blob of evil acts inflicted upon Mary done for vague cult reasons. Once Mary's father is dead, the cult continues engaging in ritual and potential assault and violation of Mary to keep access to her blood, also for vague culty reasons, and which completely overshadows the whole rape thing. Angela is no longer a character worthy of analyzing in her own right. Instead, she's just a shade of Mary, still tethered to the town she called home, weathered and frayed by the ritualistic abuse she suffered. And Laura, at best, is Mary clinging to some sense of childhood, maybe age regression, maybe jumping back to a point in life where she last felt control over the chaos control. Or at worst, I think maybe Mary was impregnated by her father, and Laura is a representation of that trauma and sense of helplessness.
My baby's sad. He's cold and sad. Sad because nobody loved him. Just like Mary.
All the blood the cult is bathing in, the blood that keeps leaking from her nostrils, would be the baby's then, not Mary's herself. I think Heather's story in Silent Hill 3 is similar to this, where the cult wants to impregnate Heather to give birth to God. All of the ritualistic torture that Mary suffers is connected to the disease Silent Hill's residents are suffering, I think. Maybe?
My father poisoned me. He poisoned me my whole life.
To be clear, I don't like any of this. I think it's all needlessly convoluted, and so many of the motivations boil down to meaningless cult shenanigans. Why did Joshua rape Mary? For the cult. Why did he inject her with poison all her life? For the cult. Why do they drink her blood? For the cult. Why is there a shrine of her father in her bedroom? For the cult. Why do they sabotage her relationship with James? For the cult. Why was the town's water contaminated? For the cult, I think. Maybe the answers are there and I'm just not seeing them, but the cult and Joshua himself feel so underexplored in this retelling that none of their actions seem to matter outside of some amorphous, evil thing to gesture toward for why Mary is so mysterious and messed up. And because Mary only gets characterized with respect to James and to the cult, she comes across as paper thin and more than a little stupid and kind of awful, honestly. Like Mary, at the beginning of the film, is trying to get on a bus to leave Silent Hill and escape the clutches of the cult. She's a prominent member of Silent Hill society with a legacy there. They say her father built this town, so she has to have some money, right? But she completely changes her mind because some handsome asshole driving recklessly to the tune of Simple and Clean from Kingdom Hearts ran over her suitcase? No, don't escape the ritualistic blood cult. You're so sexy. Just get on the damn bus, Mary. Instead of leaving, which was apparently so important and pressing that Mary tried doing it with no contingency plans, Mary jumps into a short-sighted relationship with James and returns to the town. She opts to hide her involvement with the cult instead of being upfront with James, but she hides it so fucking poorly. I mean, there's a shrine to her dead father in their fucking living room, and they can't even be bothered to close the door during their weekly seances. It's so funny watching these guys walk out in shame and embarrassment like the cops shut down a sex party mid-orgy.
Okay. What the fuck was that?
There's this scene of domestic violence where James confronts Mary about the cult and Mary defends it. Having lived through this myself, I know how messy domestic violence can look from the outside. If you watch the mental illness video, you'll get what I mean. But these two both come across as completely awful people here. Mary slaps a glass out of James's hand and shoves him twice.
Say it!
Blames him, calls him scared. Not to mention this whole confrontation occurs because she's very poorly hiding a double life from him. And James behaves like a violent, manipulative freak, showing no softness or compassion for Mary as she explains how she's been groomed since childhood. He gets so offended at being called scared that he grabs her and shakes her, bellowing in her face.
Scared.
You think I'm scared? I am not scared! I am not scared of any of you!
Both of these people fucking suck, and none of it feels human at all, their emotions not so much clashing as just flying past each other. I'm not rooting for this relationship at all, especially when their flashbacks seem so bland and their banter so dull. If James had met Mary in Silent Hill, pulled Mary out of it, only to find that she returned to Silent Hill, trademark, just to fall back into the cult's clutches, there would be something psychological there. A victim of rape and torture so mentally damaged that Stockholm Syndrome has become reflexive. The cult is a part of who she feels she is. What causes a person to get to that point? The film hints at this. Mary will say generic things like, "It made me feel whole," when the cult ravaged her and drank her blood.
This drug that they've been giving you all these years.
It made me feel whole. It made me feel part of them.
But because we barely get to know Mary or anything about the cult or their motivations, it all falls flat. The film pulls on too many threads instead of really exploring one, unraveling the fracture of a torn mind and discovering how a person could reach such a place where they might decide to stay.
Sorry.
When a society's will is forced upon an individual, how does that manifest? When an individual feels broken, helpless to the point of paralysis, how might she come to accept the abuse that's been inflicted upon her? How might she cope with the loss of her sense of self? I find a more compelling exploration of the violence, the internal turmoil, in the story of Hinako from Silent Hill F. Silent Hill F is the latest entry in... No, I'm serious this time. Silent Hill F follows Hinako Shimizu in 1960s Japan as she's threatened by her drunk and abusive father and signed off to participate in an arranged marriage. The game itself is very pretty with some truly ghastly and memorable creature designs and a strong sense of atmosphere with the fog and use of color, tension, and sound. I played through Silent Hill F on New Game Plus for this video, and while I think I like the game overall, I find it exhausting to get through, mainly because of its overemphasis on chase sequences, jump scares, and parry-based combat, which serves as the major force of progression through the game. The game only has 2 difficulties each for combat and puzzles at the start, story and hard. I beat it on hard for both combat and puzzles my first time through, and got so fucking frustrated I didn't want to play through it again. So this time through, I played it on story difficulty. Even so, I found the experience tiresome, if less rage-inducing. It's a lot more linear than Silent Hill 2, so you get funneled through a lot of small corridors where enemies just love trying to jump out at you with unblockable grab attacks. Combat is used as an obstacle, of course, but it also gates progression in several instances where you have to defeat all the enemies to continue. It's also used as a punishment for failing certain puzzles. Some enemies also don't die in the spirit realm, so while this turns some combat into a puzzle, it punishes you for not solving puzzles fast enough by making you fight the same enemies again, almost mechanically making combat equivalent to wasted time. There are also enemies that spawn more enemies, which means you're further punished for not completing combat quick enough with more combat. You're also punished for doing combat because, like a game such as Breath of the Wild, your weapons and their durability turn into a sort of currency you exchange for engaging with enemies. Unlike Breath of the Wild, enemies don't drop resources after being defeated, except maybe slightly refilling your meters if you have specific charms equipped at certain parts of the game. But really, the major reason you're fighting is because you have to, or because it's more annoying not to. Silent Hill 2 would also punish you with combat in certain instances. There are several rooms you can enter that hide no puzzle solutions, but instead bullets and healing items. These rooms, however, are also full of enemies which ambush you. In my last playthrough, I always took that as a signal to leave the room immediately unless I was particularly lost. But Silent Hill 2 feels like more of an exploration and puzzle game than a combat-focused game. The game places a lot of emphasis on that feeling of confusion and disorientation, so running from room to room only to suddenly be overwhelmed by enemies is a way of adding to that dread of trying to find your way forward. Silent Hill F feels like it's the other way around, like the combat is the focus, an inevitable and expected part of the otherwise fairly straightforward journey. I mean, just look at this Final Fantasy looking ass final boss for one of the endings. It gets so excessive that during my first playthrough I started joking to myself that I was killing so many enemies I'd almost certainly be unlocking the mass murderer ending by the end of the game. And, well... To be fair, this ending is the only one you can unlock on the first playthrough, and it isn't tied to how many enemies you kill, but I didn't even know this ending existed. It just felt like the only logical conclusion to all the violence I was forced to participate in, like some Last of Us Part 2 style study on vengeance and indulgence.
県道8号線にて当該事案の被疑者と思わしき女性に襲われた男性2名のうち1名は現在心肺停止の状態。羽倉町1より県警本部。一部被害者に使用された包丁ですが、敷地内からは発見できず、被疑者は現在もこれを所持している可能性が高いと思われます。どうぞ。
Silent Hill F has a ton of endings, much like its predecessors, but it expects you to play through multiple times, fulfilling different objectives to unlock those specific endings. I've only unlocked 2 myself, so I've done what I usually try not to do and looked up the rest of the endings on YouTube. I just really don't feel like playing through this game several more times, each playthrough getting more esoteric than the last. But I do have to commend the game for doing something really interesting with its New Game Plus structure. Basically, when you start a new game from a completed file, more areas are available to you early on, which isn't so weird, but the narrative also changes. There are slight, almost imperceptible differences with certain cutscenes, certain bits of dialogue, certain flashbacks. So the game just straight up gaslights the player, and it's awesome. I don't think I've ever played a game that does this, or at least I can't remember one. It's a creepy feeling that I can't trust my own recollection of events. And the game also changes other things based on which ending you're on track to get, making Hinako feel like that much more of a complex character. I wonder what would happen if a game played with this mechanic more, maybe having random chance events occur for some players and not for others, allowing narrative to transform and be connected in unusual ways. Anyway, because of these changes, and because I only have footage from my second playthrough, I have to put a disclaimer that my analysis is going to be heavily skewed in favor of the cutscenes that I witnessed myself. And there's undoubtedly a lot of context and nuance that I missed. Like I said in the last video, I don't go on Reddit or look up the wikis of these games and films unless I need a quick name or date, so I don't care if my analysis lines up with consensus or not. I'm just trying my best to piece together themes as I see fit. Hinako's story is a story of fear, alienation, and loneliness. It's what happens to a person when they feel out of place, at odds with the world and culture around them, and consequently unsure of themselves and who they are. Though Hinako isn't subject to a cult, in many ways the society around her moves like a cult, utilizing its overwhelming presence to override her will and individuality, grooming her into acceptance of its authority and its inevitability, upholding the rituals of tradition and culture, sometimes to the detriment of those caught within society's hold. YouTuber Broey Deschanel, or Maya, in her video TikTok Feminism is Not Your Friend, quotes Terence McKenna, who argues how culture can be a vehicle for the consumption, watering down, and dissolution of the individual.
That mass culture was something designed to manipulate the individual in service of powerful institutions. Something that sells an illusion of happiness, all the while eroding all the systems that make that happiness attainable.
Culture is not your friend. Culture is for other people's convenience and the convenience of various institutions. It insults you. It disempowers you. It uses and abuses you. Yet we glorify, the creative potential of the individual. But the culture is a perversion. It fetishizes objects. It preaches endless forms of false happiness. It invites people to diminish themselves by behaving like machines.
While both Maya's and Terence McKenna's discussions were made for a different context entirely, I can't help but feel like this aspect of culture applies deeply to Hinako's story. Hinako is a tomboyish 17-ish-year-old. She has a mutual crush on her childhood friend, her partner, Shu. Her sense of womanhood, what it looks like, what it means for her and her future, is burnt into her mind, causing reflexive fear and pain. To quote a film I'll be talking about later, Hinako sees firsthand that women are expected to shut off their minds and keep their uteruses open.
そろそろ中に入ろう。肩を冷やす。
はい。
Hinako resents her mother for this reason, seeing her mother as a woman who was tamed by marriage, made a passive enabler of Hinako's father's abuses and other patriarchal structures.
女に味噌汁が作れなくて何の価値があるんだ。
やめてよ。いつもいい加減にして。
うるせえ。親にその言い方はなんだ。引っ込んでろ。
お母さんも お父さんもそんなに気に入らないなら自分で作ればいいでしょ。上手なんでしょ、お料理。
ひなこやめて。お父さんにそんな言い方しないで。お母さんが悪いんだよ。ひなこはいいから早く学校に行きな。
お母さん何も悪くないよ。悪いのは全部お父さんだよ。
ひなこ、お父さんにそんなこと言うもんじゃないよ。早く行きな、早く。
And though Hinako might find solace in friendship, even those relationships are clouded in a haze of paranoia and distrust.
今は誰かと喋りたくて。
私も後から行くね。
うん。じゃあね。
裏切り者。
The game opens just after an incident where Hinako's father, demanding she accept the terms of the arranged marriage, flies into a drunken rage and throws his knife at her. From the moment she steps out of the house, I think Hinako experiences a prolonged psychotic breakdown brought on by anxiety, stress, and learned helplessness. This would explain the presence of the fog and its monster, the weird behavior of her friends, the terrifying puzzles and abominations, and the town's sudden emptiness. Even though people should be around, Hinako is met with abandonment. She sees the archetypes of people, of roles in her life, transformed. The woman-shaped mannequins covered in blood and bruises, stepping and bending in delicate shapes. The phallic masculine blob brandishing its reckless blade or bellowing to command other creatures. The scarecrows dressed in familiar school uniforms, presenting a false face and striking only when Hinako least expects. A representation of childhood trying to call Hinako back. A mass of students spewing what I can only describe as toxic gossip. And the absolute best design of all, a blistering mound of swelling breasts atop a set of feminine open legs, repeatedly birthing fleshy sacs which hatch into new horrid monsters. Hinako lashes out at these creatures, fighting back at what she sees as her inevitable future, and in doing so, we uncover two tales. One of Hinako A, who is stripped down, groomed, and forced to kill the rebellious side of her until the marriage she feared becomes palatable, even if the torture of losing will, of being leashed, of being forced by the pomp of ceremony and traditional expectations to conceive and give birth to a new line of heirs, is all just as unbearable as Hinako expected it'd be. And then there's the tale of Hinako B, a Hinako distrustful of her friends and neighbors, a Hinako who steps out to her town in distress and is met only with emptiness and silence. While this Silent Hill feels a lot more lively than others, it uses some cool techniques to capture and convey Hinako's paranoia and fear of abandonment really well. When Hinako's friend Sakuko repeatedly calls her a traitor, when another friend, Rinko, a romantic rival, takes passive-aggressive jabs at Hinako, when a cutscene ends and a character is no longer beside Hinako but many steps away, obscured by fog, that's when you can sense Hinako's worry and loneliness. Loneliness is not just a physical thing. You can be surrounded by people, immersed with them in activity and conversation, and still feel so isolated, so ostracized, so left behind, especially once they're no longer around. And it's easy for some people to say, well, just go out there and touch grass, talk to people, make some friends. But those words are meaningless against the lived experience and memory of someone who has been, or who feels that they have been, lied to, cheated on, ignored, exploited, used, abused, and abandoned time and again. when you're crying, trying to call for help, and no one can be there to hold you. This time will be different, but like, will it? I don't have infinite lives. I won't be young forever. How many more times do I have to be let down? So Hinako starts to numb herself to friendships. Her idea of community breaks down, which allows her to be charmed, groomed, and outwitted by the fox mask. He dresses in religious ritual, ancient esoteric systems designed to temper will and diminish the self in favor of the community. Now, here's where I have to admit that I'm a little lost. You meet the fox mask in the spirit realm, and his whole vibe is obviously a metaphor for grooming. So it seems like he's the husband in the arranged marriage, especially given the cheers of the audience. But you get a note early on about a fox wedding, about women who suddenly disappear. There are missing girl posters for Hinako and other girls. And later in Hinako's home, you can find hidden messages from what seems to be a secret suitor of Hinako's. Notably, these don't show up in every playthrough, but there may be different ones to collect depending on which ending you get. So it feels like either feeling trapped, Hinako left town, falling into the arms of a man represented by the fox mask, who wants Hinako now that she's reached adolescence, or the fox mask is the man she was always arranged to marry. Or maybe the fox mask is just a metaphor for the abusive charm of power and of tradition and of ritual. The entire system and institution of marriage, or at least arranged marriage, characterized by old shrines and temples and practices, and also by a patriarchal figure who slyly kills off the individual, removes her from her past life and affections to extract something from her. Or maybe all of these at once. There's another tale, Hinako C, the player. Hinako following in her own footsteps, uncovering the fracture in her own mind. She is the fog monster. She is a rebellious self. She is a girl content to kill everything to fall into the arms of her distant suitor. Having watched the endings, I'm more convinced the fox mask represents her distant suitor, grooming her from afar. It seems like no matter what, Hinako runs away from it all, from her town, from her friends, from her family, from everything. And the only question these endings answer is why and what became of her. Either she's gripped in psychosis, committing spree murders at weddings as her misdirected way of fighting back against the patriarchal system which harmed her. Maybe she chooses to marry the stranger, giving herself in previous life as she readies to passively bear his children. Or she chooses herself, falling deeper into her mind, alone but at least at peace. There's only one ending that seems to take place outside of her mind. Hinako fights back against the fox mask and the demon he harbors. Then she escapes with Shu, allowing herself to return to town and grow together again with her partner. But even though we get a radio broadcast explaining the fog and why the town was empty, something about this ending still feels very off.
I think it's crazy that you felt that the only way to do that was to give up on your life.
Whatever the case, none of the endings cure the ills of Hinako's immediate environment. Hinako felt society needle at her, poke her open, and pull her apart. She internalized the pressure of expectations from a sunless cloud of labels: daughter, woman, girl, wife, sister, partner.
Hinako wa watashi no mono da. Mohaya kimi no mono de wa nai ne.
Iya, ore no aibou nan da kara ore no da. Kashiteru dake da.
She felt pressured to destroy some parts of herself to carry others forward. This is what happens when community fails or is corrupt, when love only makes itself known through the filter of toxic systems and manipulation and abuse.
俺はダメな男だ。笑って祝福するつもりでいたんだ。でもできなかった。それどころか俺はお前に薬と偽ってそれは内なる自分と対話できる薬だが体質によっては非常に危険な薬だ。
してそんなものを私に。
結婚を断って欲しかった。一番思ってるのは誰か気づいて欲しかった。
We've seen this in Silent Hill 2, when Angela recounts her mother saying she deserved her father's sexual abuse.
Thank you for saving me. But I wish you hadn't. Even Mama said it. I deserved what happened.
No, Angela, that's wrong.
No, don't pity me. I'm not worth it.
How much did that one comment from someone who should have been a foundation of Angela's community cause Angela to internalize her pain in the same way James internalizes the accusation of being a rapist and cheater, the same way Hinako internalizes her abuse, her isolation, and her expectation of forced motherhood? For Hinako, the larger town fades into hints of jealousy and hushed gossip. Her friendships spoil from envy and distrust. Even Hinako's closest friend was drugging her, either purposefully or inadvertently creating more fracture in her mind. Connections and relationships collapse, afflicted by the structural rot of irreconcilable wills gnawing at each other. Even the directionless chaos of Hinako's false community proves almost insurmountable. But when community turns to cult, its desires more focused, its manipulations more incisive, its will more immediately oppressive, we witnessed the dehumanization that Return to Silent Hill's Mary was forced to accept. We see how a person's deepest insecurities can be melted down, reforged, and weaponized. And we see how, amid it all, a person might grow to love their exploitation and their trauma. Suspiria is a 1977 horror film which was remade in 2018. The general premise is that an American dancer, Susie Bannion, travels to Germany to participate in a prestigious, world-renowned ballet company, which is the front for a secretive and immortal coven of witches. So I'd never watched the original 1977 version of Suspiria before watching the 2018 remake. In fact, when I first saw the remake in theaters, I didn't even know it was a remake. I thought the original might be relevant for this video, so I decided to watch it. The remake is starkly different, however, taking the same characters, a similar setting, and the same general narrative beats, but adding so much more depth, personality, and meaning to the witchy happenings throughout the story. The original, by contrast, is a somewhat directionless slasher film where witchy things just sort of happen. Like, genuinely, there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason for most of it except the vague gesturing towards stopping anyone from finding out the truth, and the inherent horror of trying to keep a decaying being, the undead director and head witch in charge of the dance company, Mother Marcos, alive for so long. The witches are also insanely petty, so we fall into this eerie, inscrutable flow of random murder, witchy hex, random murder, dark secret, until at the very end, Susie discovers the truth of Mother Marcos's reign and kills her, destroying the coven for good. She even does this badass walk away from the fire with a smile like she just got a kiss from her crush or had some amazing sex moments ago. It makes the original feel sort of video gamey, weirdly enough, especially when this character Pat calls out the key to a door that Susie finds later. Like the answer to some kind of dungeon puzzle or riddle. The original does some fun, interesting things with lighting and set design. There's this almost funhouse quality to the shots of the dance company, which is a school in the original, and some of the other locations. Although I dread this one fucking location, like it's just an office building with modern design, and I don't know what it is, but my heart just sinks when I have to accept that a building back in 1977 could look this drab, gray, and soulless. It's like that one location in The Shape of Water that felt so out of time for me, like I was just heading to my cubicle back when I used to work an office job. It's not the movie's fault, by the way. I'm sure most people don't have their gag reflex triggered just because they see a modern office building. Looking back, I'm wondering if this contrast is intentional, pitting the steely stoicism of the psychologist's office against the fanciful mystique of the witch's coven. Anyway, I like what Suspiria 1977 does with lighting. Whenever the diegetic lights go out, a set of colored non-diegetic lights come on, which fill the scene with an ominous, otherworldly presence. The music as well is a series of chiming, minimalistic, and rhythmic dissonances that layer atop one another in almost dancey grooves. It all helps build the sense of unease and gets you wondering who's going to be targeted next and why. The Dance Academy in the original never reaches the levels of duplicity, manipulation, and outright possession as the dance company in the remake. In the original, the magic and murder is tamer, less specific, and the dance group itself comes across as if it doesn't really want anything except to perpetuate its own existence. This makes it feel, as an organization, more bumbling in its methods than the dance company in the remake. I'll talk about the remake more in just a moment, but while the remake focuses heavily on the process of grooming, deconstruction, and incestuous cult-like sorority drawing Susie Bannion into the community, the original does the opposite, framing the Dance Academy as immediately hostile and sometimes apathetic to Susie.
My name is Olga, and you're my tenant.
Oh, hi, nice to meet you.
They tell me you have to give me $50 a week.
Yeah.
In advance.
Well, don't worry if you think I'm not...
Don't get hot under the collar. That's how people are here.
Can anybody lend me a pair of shoes?
Yes, me.
Oh, thank you.
If you want to buy them, I can make you a nice price. 50 marks.
There's not much sense of community or insidious manipulation and mind games. Instead, there's bickering, drama, suspicion, and outright coercion. By the end of the film, these aren't so much the mechanics of a failed community, but just what happens when you find yourself in a bad and dangerous place. Suspiria 2018 is a remake done right. It fleshes out the world and characters in a way I find deeper and more compelling than the original. While Suspiria 1977 is a slasher, Suspiria 2018 is psychological body horror. The direction and set design still manages to be interesting and unique, even capturing some of that original 1970s flair, and the music, composed by Zionist apologist Tom York, is minimalistic and rhythmic. Similar to the original, but manages to strike a more dramatic and sentimental chord, singing of longing and desire and corrupted unity. I mean, this might be due to my current emotional breakdown, but I literally started crying at the end of Suspiria when I heard that final song play. It's the kind of really beautiful stuff you'd expect from the frontman of a legendary, if sometimes tragically politically misaligned, band like Radiohead. Suspiria 2018 is set during the Cold War, maybe coincidentally in the same year, 1977, that the original Suspiria came out. The dance company operates out of a building in Berlin within a divided Germany in a state of constant violent political unrest. This political division becomes a metaphor for the power struggle we see play out at the dance company between Madame Blanc and Helena Marcos, both powerful witches trying to be the head of their coven. Susie Bannion, a woman from a very conservative puritanical Amish background, arrives in the midst of the struggle. The ballet itself, while serving more as set dressing in the original film, is much more important in the remake. Ballet as an expression of human feeling and physicality serves as a mechanic translating the systems of magic, power, and sexuality through the narrative.
Let me ask you another. When you were dancing, what did it feel like inside you, inside your body?
It felt like what I think it must feel like to fuck.
You mean to fuck a man?
No, I was thinking of an animal.
And the company, which was co-ed in the original, is now unisex. This change highlights more acutely the dynamics of sorority, family, intimacy, and, ironically, sexual desire as the characters engage in sapphic bonding exercises and Susie unlearns her sexual repression. There's a parallel drawn early on between Susie's Amish family moving in single-minded focus to care for the family's matriarch, Susie's dying, abusive mother, and the Coven's sycophantic operating to serve and prove loyal to their matriarch, Mother Marcos. Suspiria 2018 is where we start to see the dance company move like an actual cult. I'm not going to go and get a Google search definition for what a cult is, charismatic leader and all that, mainly because I don't think it would be honest or helpful for what I'm trying to do here. Just understand that for my purposes in this video, when I say cult, I mean a community of people which takes ownership of the individuals within. This community's needs and will as a group supersede the needs and will of any individual member, leading the community to strip down the ego and individualism of its members through hive mind consensus and ritualistic practices, but sometimes through force, coercion, deception, violence, and illicit substances.
Glauben Sie etwa an Hexen, Doktor?
Nee. Aber dass Leute sich manchmal zusammenschließen, um Verbrechen zu begehen und das dann Magie nennen. Das kann ich glauben.
Each member finds belonging in the cult, either through misplaced trust, Stockholm Syndrome, or genuine faith in its principles. And the cult needs its individual members, creating the necessity to periodically recruit new blood through the luring and seduction of outsiders. Those new recruits are very often people who feel broken in some way. They're lonely, suffering trauma and purposelessness, and find themselves enticed by the promises of kinship, belonging, care, direction, and sometimes power. The political struggle between the two matriarchs, Blanc and Marcos, is all in service of three ancient gods.
Mother Tenebrarum, Mother Lacrimarum, and Mother Suspiriorum.
Mother Marcos claims to be one of the three and thus holds authority over the coven. Blanc is almost equally revered, having kept the dance company strong during World War II, and while serving ostensibly as second in command to Marcos, Blanc surreptitiously undermines Marcos's will, casting doubt on Marcos's claim to power and wresting power of her own. The witch's mortal battle is largely hidden from view. It seems peaceful and democratic on the surface, but that facade masks violence, chaos, and subterfuge from shrewd politicking, insatiable lust, and petty vengeance underneath. Patricia, played by Chloe Grace Moretz, is an adaptation of Pat from the original, a woman who runs from the cult while suffering from extreme panic. She's the first one murdered in the original, along with her friend who she tries to stay with. In the 2018 film, Patricia is a political activist who suffers extreme PTSD after escaping the Coven's clutches. Patricia was Marcos's chosen, the dancer whose body and abilities made her most suitable for Marcos to assume her form and maintain her immortality. It's Patricia's disappearance and Susie's arrival that begin the events of the plot. Patricia's distressed ramblings immediately characterize the Coven's behavior as sexual predation, grooming.
Olga's already figured out things. She saw how they groomed me.
They strip off bits and pieces of her, hair and urine, in an attempt to control and ultimately possess her.
At the beginning, they gave me things. Perfect balance, perfect sleep, talking with our minds. But they took my hair. They took my urine. They took my eyes. Now she can see me.
Patricia's trauma is deeply sexual, like Hinako's.
If they found out I was here, they won't hesitate. Sie werden mich schlachten und meine Fotze vom Teller fressen.
But unlike Hinako, who is socially pressured into a state of numb, learned helplessness and acceptance, Patricia says she thought she wanted it.
She wants to get inside of me. I can feel her. I thought I wanted it. I let it happen.
This is an aspect of grooming I think people, especially on the internet, often fail to grasp or acknowledge. In commentary, victims of abuse and grooming are often characterized as cognitively sound beacons of moral clarity, that they would look back on everything and unflinchingly and unequivocally call out the harm and evil for what it was, the perfect, unambiguous victim. But often victims of this kind of abuse may express more nuanced feelings of pleasure, even joy and desire. It's this very desire that the abuser wields, preys upon, giving the victim a sense of attention, satisfaction, approval, and fulfillment. I mentioned in a previous video that I was sexually taken advantage of as a child when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. I won't go into much detail about this, but yeah, there were times when I really liked the feelings I got, even looked forward to the next moment with this person, until I didn't anymore. I was repeatedly asked, pleaded with, my participation was gamified until I was thoroughly coerced or maybe tricked into thinking it'd just be one more time and I wouldn't have to do it again. This is how I learned about consent and how gross it feels when that consent is ignored, belittled, or stripped away from you. I mean, hell, even with Q from the mental illness video, I've been trying not to mention her too much in this video, and I don't think at all that she was a cold, calculated manipulator, but those moments when she insulted me, called me pathetic, and told me she wanted to hurt me were still moments that on some level I appreciated. I cared for her, I wanted to be with her, in her life, so I accepted the verbal abuse and the violent language. As I said in that last video, hearing from her was better than silence. It was painful because despite the things she might have said, telling me she hated me or wanted me to die, hearing from her felt better than silence. At least if she was still talking, there was a connection there and more chances to reason with her and get her help. Female desire and sexual autonomy and their repression and exploitation by those with power is thoroughly explored in the Suspiria remake.
She's incredible. The way she transmits her work. Her energy, when it shines on you, it's addictive is the word for it. She's tough. She kept the company alive through the war. When the Reich just wanted women to shut off their minds and keep their uteruses open. That was blank.
So when we see Susie willingly immerse herself in the cult, in stark contrast to the bold defiance of her counterpart in the original, it makes a lot of sense to me. Susie was violently reprimanded for masturbation and sexual exploration back at home. Her mother and family forced her down a specific avenue of thought and behavior. So when she gets to the dance company and is suddenly surrounded by pretty bodies, the sordid whisperings of sex, the sensual touching, the confusing, incestuous intimacy of the group, and then is praised for the way her body moves and expresses its physicality, Susie of course chases that approval and desire. Sara in the original film was Patricia's friend who was killed while trying to understand the secrets Patricia had uncovered. Sara confides in Susie, who then finishes Sara's work to kill Marcos and crush the coven. The remake follows the same general structure, but Sara and Susie become a lot closer, to the point where I'm not really sure how to describe their relationship. At times they feel like more than sisters, more than best friends, sleeping in the same bed together, Sara kissing Susie on the cheek in front of the entire group, and it's all played alongside this elongated, lustful tug of war between Susie and Blanc. Blanc, and the cult by extension, yearn for Susie. They make their approval known but pepper it now and then with random negging or performed indifference.
You don't look better. Or are you this pale all the time?
But this more abusive behavior is in service of sexual and physical control, which culminates in two moments. One of spiritual masturbation, where Susie has an orgasm while writhing on the floor during an improvised dance called Open Again, drawing Mother Suspiriorum toward her.
Did something happen to you during it?
No.
Did you feel something there? Someone? Or something?
What made you say that?
I don't know.
Am I confusing you?
No, it's odd. It's the sort of thing Patricia would say.
Then another moment of what I read as spiritual or metaphorical lovemaking between Blanc and Susie, where Susie hollows herself out, allowing herself to be shaped in Blanc's image, and begins losing herself and pulling away from her friend and potential love interest, Sara.
Higher. 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 Higher.
I think the ambiguous nature of Susie's relationship with Sara is intentional. As I've mentioned, this cult is incestuous, where those who get close enough play the simultaneous roles of friend, family, and lover. Susie in the original is put off by the immediate hostility, the trauma, and the incessant demanding of money. Because the dance school is co-ed, Susie very predictably develops a mutual crush on the prettiest young man in the room. This doesn't really end up going anywhere though. Pretty Boy just sort of disappears from the film after a certain point. He really isn't important at all. In the remake, the company is much more attractive, literally, lulling Banny in and easing her in.
You don't charge anything at all.
Not a mark. In this company, we fully understand the importance of a woman's financial autonomy.
In this now unisex space, dance, sex, and vaguely homoerotic communion are the mechanisms with which this cult operates. It's not unusual for women to be this close and open with each other in modern Western society, and the company bills itself as a bastion of female liberation. But when those mechanisms fail and the communion is broken, the lustful gaze blinded, people like Patricia and Olga are violently excised, sometimes not even intentionally, because these witches are not fully in control of their own power.
Sie war empfänglicher, als wir erwartet hatten. Darum haben wir uns hinreißen lassen, wütend zu sein auf Olga.
When everything goes right for them, though, the witches use the shrouds of sorority and seniority to prey on the young dancers, groom them so that they're ready to participate unwittingly in the mother's sapphic rituals. That ambiguity between lover and sister shapes an interesting love triangle. Susie finds warmth and security in Sara's proximity and concern for her.
I've only ever slept in bed with my sister. We're sisters now.
Susie also finds fulfillment in Blanc's desire for her and wields this desire to chase greater power. It's after Sara sleeps in Susie's bed, calling her a sister, pecking her on the cheek, that Susie orgasms on the floor during Blanc's improvised dance. It's when Sara begins suspecting the company of deceit that Susie and Blanc make love.
She hasn't come back yet. Maybe she's seeing somebody. Overwhelmed.
It's after this moment that Sara calls out Susie, almost like a lover asking if their partner is being unfaithful, which Susie denies.
You're making some kind of deal with them.
I don't know what you're talking about.
How can you know what they're gonna ask you in return?
Sarah, whatever you have in your mind, nothing is wrong.
You just haven't seen the bill yet.
Nothing's wrong.
Sara leans into doubt, fed by psychologist Dr. Klimpeter, Patricia's therapist, a new character in the remake, who was in turn fed hints by Patricia herself before she disappeared. Sara investigates the hidden corridors of the company building to find her old friend, shriveled and coarse with rot. Simultaneously, Susie dances Volk, Blanc's magnum opus, and the cult uses the power the performance draws to maim Sara and force her back into the fold to complete the show, which ultimately collapses when Sara's possession fails. Susie seems shaken by this, and in a deeply intimate moment, framed like two lovers after trauma, expressing both concern and commitment about to spend the night together, Susie reveals telepathically that she was the reason Sara's possession failed.
I'm sorry I went off book.
This can't happen again. You're only just starting to understand, Susie. We brought Sarah back upstairs to try to complete the performance in time, but then you derailed it.
Did I hurt those people?
Not this time. They saw a dance, that's all.
In the end, though, Susie wins, and not in the sort of cheesy slasher horror way of walking away from a burning building. Susie's victory is more psychological. She becomes possessed by the spirit of the goddess Suspiriorum and wrests control from Marcos, killing off all of Marcos's followers as an act of vengeance for Marcos's pride, disloyalty, and the murder of Blanc. Well, maybe this isn't victory for Susie per se, because she isn't Susie anymore. The process of stripping the self, removing the ego, and subsuming the individual into something greater than herself was completed and thoroughly effective. In the end, none of the other dancers recall the tragedy that took place. Dr. Klempeter, the only outside witness to all the pain, the death, the suffering, is left without any memory of his own past, of anything that occurred, or anyone that was lost. There are times when it feels like memory is more burden than it's worth, like feeling is a curse burning at the skin just enough to annoy, disorient, concern, frustrate, nauseate, torment, but not enough to maim, just enough that no one else can see it. And if no one else can see it, then what's the use of holding it?
Of Anke Meyer. Of Patricia Hingle. Of Sarah Sims. Of Susanna Banyan. Of all the women of your undoing. Every memory will vanish. They will melt away in the sun and be gone. Wir brauchen Schuld, Doktor, und Scham, aber nicht deine.
I sometimes feel that maybe Dr. Klempeter's fate in Suspiria wasn't so bad. Oblivion, like the stolid mind of a tranquil mage from Dragon Age, unable to cry, fear, smile, or dream. Can he feel sorry for himself if he doesn't remember what to feel sorry for? Can he feel empty if he has no memory of what made him so overwhelmingly full? What might it look like for me? A senseless drone, fit for the most menial or degrading of labor, but at least no more panic attacks, no more crying, no more burdening people, no more feeling like I'm only good for sex, labor, and convenience, no more tortured loneliness, no more relentless pull from my memory of Q. It sounds tragic, but the opposite can be even more horrifying. That's where we find James writhing in a pit of memory and regret, toiling through the muck of grief and longing. He battles back atrophy through therapy and alcohol, but over and over he finds himself back in that pit, unable to climb free. And that's what makes the ending of the film so terrifying, because like Hinako, like Susie Banyan, it isn't until James leaves everything else behind that he achieves some kind of peaceful acceptance of the hurt and torment. And like Hinako, this acceptance manifests as heavy iron, further imprisoning him within his own psyche. Silent Hill 2 Original has multiple endings, the most tragic of which likely being In Water, where James takes Mary's body and drives presumably into Toluca Lake, where it's implied that he drowns to death.
Now I understand the real reason I came to this town. I wonder, what was I afraid of? Without you, Mary, I've got nothing. Now, we can be together.
This is the ending Return to Silent Hill takes as its canon. James is much more morally justified in his killing of Mary in this iteration, putting an end to the suffering and physical pain she was subject to by her father and his cult. But his killing Mary and the lead up to her death still drains his soul of almost anything recognizable. Overwhelmed with grief, he decides to join Mary, plunging his car into the lake. But here's where the film takes an interesting twist. There's a Silent Hill 2 theory which Bloober Team's remake leans somewhat into, that James is trapped in a time loop.
This theory simply suggests that James is stuck in a cyclical, repeating sequence of events within Silent Hill Town. There's a puzzle in the game in which you need to collect photos with cryptic captions and hidden numbers. The crazy part, however, is that when you decode these photos, they spell out a sentence saying, "You've been here for 2 decades." Which is likely meant to hint at the loop theory. Throughout your playthrough, you come across many bodies scattered all over Silent Hill, but the shocking part is that they all resemble James Sunderland. In other words, this can possibly mean he died multiple times in Silent Hill, and under different circumstances, based on what he went through, or what he encountered in different places in each cycle.
Now, this isn't a Silent Hill ending explained in all caps kind of video. These theories can be interesting, but I find the internet's single-minded obsession with theories and solving art to be kind of annoying and useless, serving mostly as perpetual marketing for their franchise of choice.
The algorithm reward loop of breakdown channels, theory threads, and frame-by-frame Easter egg analysis, which created a new economy of social currency. Viewers are no longer rewarded for understanding the thematic weight of a scene. They are rewarded for spotting a background prop. We call this the lore-ification of cinema. It is the assumption that every piece of media is a puzzle box containing a secret overarching system. But the danger here is not the analysis itself, but the misapplication of that habit.
Art is supposed to be mulled over, its meaning and purpose derived after exploration, introspection, and deconstruction. A lot of these theories just exist for the sake of existing, for content, answering questions that nobody ever asked just to fill the silence. And this theory hunting often devolves into mindlessly chopping art into puzzle pieces that never quite fit together correctly. The art itself becomes insular, quarantined within a universe where it exists only within its own context for the purpose of perpetually rebuilding itself.
Screenwriters who are hyper-aware of this forensic audience begin drafting defensively. They plant superfluous details specifically to feed the theory economy, or they over-explain their own subtext to prevent misinterpretation. This creates a tonal dissonance. The film becomes a checklist, a dataset to be parsed rather than an experience to be felt. But it is crucial to acknowledge that not all structural analysis is a misstep. Directors like Christopher Nolan build films like Tenet precisely to be dismantled. They are cinematic palindromes that invite the forensic lens. The critical failure occurs when the viewers don't know when to turn that lens off. And the ultimate consequence for that is the erosion of emotional literacy. We have replaced the question of what did this make me feel with what does this connect to, and treating ambiguity as a math equation to be solved rather than a mirror designed for reflection.
Anyway, I bring up the time loop theory only to try to explain what's going on with this ending. James drowns himself, taking Mary's hand in his during his final moments. Then he regains consciousness seemingly just before his fateful encounter with Mary for the first time. This ending is absolutely devastating to me for 2 specific reasons. Beginning with reason number 2, let's assume all this is really happening. This isn't a dream sequence, it isn't fake in some fundamental way. James was brought back in time to the moment he and Mary met, through some mechanism that we'll never know and that for our purposes doesn't matter. In this scenario, this re-encounter with Mary is built on lies and manipulation so foundational that their entire relationship would structurally give way if those building blocks were even slightly jostled. It reminds me a bit of the almost abusive coldness we see James show in the Maria ending of Silent Hill 2 original.
You'd better do something about that cough.
Here, in Return to Silent Hill, it's like an incel's wet dream. James knows most of Mary's darkest secrets, and he's pretending he doesn't just so that she'll fall for him, to keep her right where he wants her, cute, simple, familiar, and unchallenging. And so, to get that, he lies to her, overriding her will, her personhood, with his own desire and the power of knowing what she never could.
It's okay, I got it. The latch is broken.
How do you know that? Shit, that's my bus. Hey! Wait! Sorry, just...
Where are you heading?
The next city.
Well, I just ruined your day. Wouldn't be much of a gentleman if I didn't try and help fix it.
A gentleman? Didn't know they made those anymore.
Gentleman named James?
I'm...
Mary. I saw it on your case.
I mean, what happens after the car ride? What if Mary, now free of her father's cult, decides that she doesn't need James anymore? What if their love, their relationship, was predicated on a set of infinitesimal decisions so invisible that James couldn't do them over again, even if he had a million tries? Does he force her then to love him, to be with him forever? Does he continue to lie, to manipulate? This ending is dressed in the robes of a tale of tragic love, and I'm not sure in a hypothetical scenario how or even if a person could go about explaining to someone that they care about them and know all these things about them without getting sprayed with mace in return. It might just be one of those things where the only appropriate answer is to step away. There's an irreconcilable power imbalance, and even if there wasn't, then maybe, as I'm still failing to learn with Q, there's nothing to do but to accept that knowing that she's okay has to be enough, even if it really hurts to no longer be in her life anymore. Instead, James chooses not just to omit the truth, but to actively lie, to steer her along the path he wants for her. As righteous of a character as James comes across in the film, this level of deception is at least spiritually aligned with the deceitful manipulations of the cults that we've seen in Suspiria and in this very movie. It's easy to work backwards from the pretense, I'm trying to help her, to reach the conclusion, I know what's best for her. It's a paternal feeling, and I mean that derogatorily. I know this feeling. I expressed it at length in the last video and further in this one. The feeling can come from a good place of care, of wanting to protect, but at its worst becomes a vector of puritanical thought, infantilization, and toxic control.
What do you paint?
With this framing, Mary, like Susie Bannion, becomes a means to an end, that end being James's fulfillment, masked as loving concern for her. Unwittingly, she slinks into her role, James's partner, exactly how he remembers her, with newfound peace but unknowingly serving his selfish end. I keep thinking back to the end of Resident Evil Requiem. Grace is injured and can't move. The facility is collapsing around her and Leon, and rather than affecting his expected action movie bravado, fumbling and flailing arrogantly to force a path forward, Leon decides to just sit beside Grace in the dark, offering her care and company.
There's no way out, is there?
Well, I'm not gonna leave your side. I'm gonna sit right here with you.
It's an unusually quiet moment for a game and series defined by its bombast. Like, what do you mean there's no way out? Where's the nearest boulder and when do I start punching it? Yes, I used that joke in the last video. That moment sticks with me because in our overstimulating, over-rehearsed, overproductive world, unscripted, unplanned moments of quiet, not just self-quiet, but quiet with someone, are hard to come by. They feel awkward, too slow. We need something to fill the space. We need control. But Requiem takes an unexpectedly human and intimate turn, and that's more meaningful to me than any of the words or reassurances spoken throughout. When there is no way out, when all someone needs is a witness beside them to appreciate all there is, all there isn't, and all there was, who will be there? Midsommar is a 2019 film by Ari Aster that I think demystifies abuse, cult, and the breakdown of relationships and the self so thoroughly and beautifully that I always find myself wanting to bring it up. Thankfully, in this context, it fits really well, but you can imagine how awkward it is when I try to bring it up during sex. Midsommar is a beautiful film, excellently acted, compellingly designed and structured, dynamic photography oozing with symbolism, and incredible music. It follows Dani after her sister Terry commits a murder-suicide, annihilating her parents and herself. What follows is a series of parallelisms as we watch the slow-motion breakdown of Dani's relationship with her boyfriend Christian, as well as their respective divorces from the outside world, their larger communities. What I feel can be easily missed in these initial moments is the sheer insurmountable isolation as Dani is walled off physically from almost anyone who cares about her. Dani says she's there for her parents, just moments before their untimely deaths.
Anyway, I just got a little worried, so if you can call when you can, and of course, you know, I'm always here if you need anything, of course.
But it's the same kind of impotent "I'm here for you" that lacks any physicality, that pauses after business hours and slows during peak times, that can't be there to hug you or warm your skin with proximity, with presence. It's that quote from The Plague about the loneliness of suffering that I shared in the previous video. Sometimes at midnight, in the great silence of the sleep-bound town, the doctor turned on his radio before going to bed for the few hours sleep he allowed himself. And from the ends of the earth, across thousands of miles of land and sea, kindly, well-meaning speakers tried to voice their fellow feeling, and indeed did so, but at the same time proved the utter incapacity of every man truly to share in suffering that he cannot see. Oran, Oran! In vain the call rang over oceans. In vain Ru listened hopefully. Always the tide of eloquence began to flow, bringing home still more the unbridgeable gulf that lay between Grand and the speaker. Oran, we're with you, they called emotionally, but not, the doctor told himself, to love or to die together. And that's the only way. They're too remote. Physical distance is just an inherent buffer against suffering, especially when it's not an individual's own. And as genuine as Dani's love for her family might be, she's simply too remote. For whatever reason, be it geographic distance or even the hazardous snowstorm outside, Dani cannot be there for them in a real physical sense. She cannot sit with them in the dark like Leon with Grace. So she's left in emotional limbo, worry and stress mounting, but nowhere for them to fall. So they continue compounding. And just as Dani cannot be there for her family, Dani has no one capable or willing to be there for her.
Hey. Dani. Babe.
Dani has precisely one friend, and I mean that, just one. No, her boyfriend doesn't count for reasons we will be exploring in a bit.
I'm always leaning on him. Like, I even called him today in tears because my sister wrote another stupid, scary email.
That's what he's there for.
Dani's friend is there for her in a sense, but there's a kind of brilliance in the fact that we hear from this friend over the phone in one scene and they're never brought up again for the rest of the movie. Good community needs to be physically present, at least to some degree. Love necessitates physicality, the ability to feel with someone, not just look upon them. So it's also tragic that the one person who is physically there for Dani isn't there for her emotionally. Christian is fatigued of his relationship with Dani. She's got too much baggage, they aren't having sex, and he's openly debating whether or not he should try to find a way out of the relationship.
What if I regret it later and I can't get her back?
You don't want her back.
I might.
Okay, well then you can bitch to us about how much you regret it for that day, and then we'll remind you again that you've been wanting out of this stupid relationship for like a year now, and then you can find a chick who actually likes sex and doesn't drag you through a million hoops every day.
So it's a stroke of dramatic irony then that when Dani's family is annihilated, Christian is the only one by her side. For all the manipulation and gaslighting and backstabbing his character does later in the film, in this one instance, he did the correct, most selfless thing, and that came at the cost of his own sense of freedom, of closure. Throughout the film, we see Christian both intentionally and inadvertently trying to get away from Dani.
I'm gonna go.
Just take some time to yourself, okay?
He can't be honest with her and just break up. That would be rude and crushing, especially since her family just got annihilated. So he lies, misleads, and ultimately drags her down a rougher, more tumultuous path.
Sweden. I had no idea.
Well, what do you mean? Because I told you I wanted to go.
Okay, fine, but I didn't know you were going.
I just decided today. I wasn't keeping it from you.
You already have a ticket.
I'm sorry.
Christian is not a good person. He's the bad kind of community, a false love, going through the motions of care but never really feeling it or living it fully.
She does this every other day, Danny, and only because you let her.
Well, I don't let her. She's bipolar.
Yeah,
so.
I know, but you do though, babes. You go straight to crisis mode.
Well, she's my sister, and even you said that this email seemed different.
Yeah, right, but is it though, really? It's still just another obvious ploy for attention, just like every other panic attack she's given you.
Yeah, you're right. You are right. Yeah, I know.
I mean, the more you respond, the more she's encouraged to keep
No,
this
I
crap
know.
up.
You're right. I just needed to be reminded. Thank you. I'm very lucky to have you.
Yeah, well.
So the fact that this is who Danny must rely on at her worst period in life is what makes her so susceptible to the grooming and self-dissolution we see later. It raises the question, is it better to suffer alone or to be stuck beside someone who doesn't really care for you? James with Maria, Angela with James, Hinako with her mother and the town at large, Susie Bannion with Blanc. All these works have their own answer, but more so, I think they caution the viewer both against the debilitating rot of isolation and against the piercing hold of false love.
Christian could walk in.
He's what I'm talking about. He's my good friend and I like him, but Danny, do you feel held by him? Does he feel like home to you?
Danny joins Christian and his associates on a trip to visit Pele's, this guy's, commune in Sweden for their Midsommar festival. Over the course of the film, Danny, Christian, and their party are psychologically broken down, isolated, made to distrust and disown each other.
Josh, on the other hand, he came to bed with us, and when we woke up, he was gone. And if he did take that book, I just pray you understand, we don't associate as friends of his or collaborators or anything. We would just be so embarrassed to be connected to this in any way, shape, or form.
This manipulation is led in part by Pele, who has feelings for Danny, but also acts on the behalf of the cult, known as the Horga. Danny is so kind and insecure that she even tries consoling Christian, who is struggling with his PhD coursework, after she feels slighted for not being told about the trip to Sweden.
Look, it just felt really weird, okay? But I'm fine. I think it's great that you're going to Sweden. I do. I think it's amazing. Are you going for your thesis?
I don't know what my thesis is.
I know, and it can be inspiring, right?
Danny correctly worries that Christian is exhausted of her and worries that she's been a drag on the relationship. She stresses about this while simultaneously panicking that her sister might have hurt herself. Danny takes lorazepam for her anxiety, suggesting this worry is a regular occurrence for her, but still she's apologetic and present and struggles standing up for herself. She is the only sympathetic character of their group headed to Sweden. Mark is a selfish prick who is dismissive of anything he doesn't understand or that doesn't serve him. Josh is an emotionally absent intellectual who views the Horga and their practices not with sincere intrigue, but as otherized subjects for study. And Christian, as I've mentioned, is a lying, cheating gaslighter who puts on a front of cordiality and agreeability to get ahead on the backs of others. So when the group all all turns on each other, it feels appropriate, even empowering, as Danny finally finds some voice to call out Christian's toxicity.
Why would Simon leave without her?
I'm sure it was just a miscommunication.
I could see you possibly doing that.
The hell does that mean?
Never mind.
But it's all overshadowed, exacerbated, and in some cases orchestrated by the machinations of the Horga, accelerating this collapse of their in-group, pulling them outward. I never fully contemplated the parallelism of the film.
Stop it, you're fine.
Hey, Danny. How are you?
They were laughing at me.
Throughout, both Danny and Christian are drugged. Both Danny and Christian cheat on each other. Both Danny and Christian work their way into privileged positions within the Horga. Both are maneuvered deftly along this path by their handlers. We see in real time how the Horga utilize a sort of focused mass hysteria to redirect and reshape the emotions of those around them. The unfathomable pain of dying, the glorious excitement of lovers in a mating ritual continuing a legacy, the hollowing grief of heartbreak, and the searing rapture of annihilation. In the end, both Danny and Christian are subsumed, almost unconsciously, into the greater whole. Both Danny and Christian are victims, to be sure, so why does Danny feel like the greater victim, the one whose induction into the cult feels more tragic? For only one of them, this transformation feels like healing, completion. This is a horrific end for Danny because, like Hinako, like Susie Bannion, it's clear that Danny was removed from structures, systems, communities, which might uplift her sense of individualism while supporting her healing and defanging her grief. And instead, Danny was thrust into a role that she never asked for, one starkly alien with violent religious zeal and oppressive structures of hierarchy and order. Cult seeks to overwrite what came before. And by the end, through Flame, both Danny and Christian have been successfully overwritten. Like with Hinako, with Patrizia, and with Susie Bannion, the process of being groomed offers power, prominence, and the illusion of agency, the sense of feeling specially ordained, but only within the context and under the supervision and stewardship of the authority figure. Susie Bannion escapes it by using her position to appeal to an even greater power, still losing herself in the process. With Danny and Christian, their transformation feels especially horrifying because it's all so mundane. The Horga aren't a demon in a fox mask or a witch's coven. They're just some pretty people in a field in Sweden. So when Danny and Christian transform for the Horga and fulfill their predetermined roles, you can more clearly see the psychological strings being pulled.
My parents, they burned up in a fire and I became technically an orphan. So believe me when I tell you that I know what it's like, because I really, really do. Yet my difference is I never got the chance to feel lost because I had a family here where everyone embraced me and swept me up. And I was raised by a community that doesn't bicker over what's theirs and what's not theirs. That's what you were given. But I have always felt held.
Danny's insecurity, her abandonment, the deterioration of her relationships, and Christian's jealousy, his self-preservation instinct, his yearning for sex. Pele is a foil of Christian. Both wield deception, both vie for Danny's approval, but while Christian is bumbling, feigning support for Danny only to distance himself from her, ultimately serving his own ends, Pele is seductive, patient, tactful, manufacturing a presence of love and concern in Danny's life while ultimately serving the ends of the cult. Danny feels like the larger, more tragic victim because unlike Christian, who almost literally sleepwalks into the cult's arms and between its legs and deliberately cuts loose everyone else in his life to get there, there's a sense that Danny was let down, that everyone in her life, especially those she trusted most, failed her and led her astray. Her smile here is a warning. What happens when community fails to care for those who need care the most? There's a way in which our modern society, at least in America, has sort of built in this physical and emotional distance, insulating people from others' suffering. It's a kind of cover your ass mentality, but for caring about people. I've talked in the past about a video from Alice Capel, one of my favorite creators ever, about how self-care and grind culture and just the general mechanisms of a capitalist society make people feel as though they don't need to care for others, like engaging with others' struggle is awkward or inconvenient or unproductive.
The industry of self-care, especially pop psychology as we now call it, has taken on the role of emotion regulator in our society. It is through therapy and self-care practices that people learn how to manage how they feel and cope with external pressures put on them. As individuals, we are told that we are our biggest project, a brand almost, and like Rousseau said, personal feeling is a handicap. It's counterproductive, so you must make sure that you don't feel too much. That means avoiding conflict, avoiding situations that make you feel uncomfortable, but also avoiding entertainment, avoiding falling in love because that's a distraction, you know?
You don't owe anyone anything, a toxic mentality that is simultaneously wrong and incredibly pervasive. People who live this way of thinking are any percent speedrunning the death of the social order at world record pace.
I don't owe anything to anyone. Now, if we take the second interpretation, the one based on avoiding emotional labor to preserve your peace, you have to agree that protecting your peace goes hand in hand with the idea of understanding who you truly are, you know? You are on your own journey trying to find your authentic self or your brand. That quest becomes ever more urgent as everything around us draws us towards inauthenticity, insincerity. The only solution we see presented to us and encouraged by modern therapy is to turn in on ourselves and study our consciousness with concepts to produce diagnosis and make conclusions about who we truly are. The whole process is very self-reflective, very circular. You are the object of study and the one conducting the study. The problem is that as you seek to protect your peace at all costs, as you seek to build your brand, you have to repeat those processes of self-estrangement again and again. You have to repress the emotions you are supposed to feel in order to move on. Now, how can that be compatible with the goal of figuring out who you are, finding your authentic self? When has it become too much of an effort to let things affect you and shape you? Why do we think that in order to become our true self, we have to isolate from other struggles, questions, and feelings? That does not make sense to me.
At the beginning of the film, Danny calls Christian for support following Terry's vague suicidal threat. Christian dismisses Danny, blaming her for enabling Terry's behavior. Christian's currently getting pizza with the boys. He doesn't care about Terry, and he doesn't want to be bothered by what he sees as Danny's histrionics. He plays the concerned boyfriend role over the phone, but barely manages to mask his dismissal and gaslighting. But then it's what Mark says next that stings the most for me.
That's not her again. Seriously? Oh my God. She needs a therapist, dude.
She has a therapist.
Oh, so then she should call her therapist and not you. It's literally abuse. She's abusing.
She needs a therapist. Firstly, for those who don't know, maybe Mark doesn't, this isn't how therapy works. If you're in a crisis, especially after hours, your therapist won't be there to support you in time, period. They're professionals with professional work schedules. So Mark is an asshole. Well, all these guys are assholes in their own way, but we knew that. But what Mark says is emblematic of so many attitudes expressed in the world today. If you're depressed or have been through some shit, how many times have you been told this phrase? Even if you're not, how many times have you heard this phrase thrown around? You need help, go to therapy. It's what we say to people who crash out online or bully or harass or abuse people. From a distance, it serves as an indictment of one's character. But if you hear it over and over in your personal life, it starts to feel like you're being abandoned, like the care and concern of those around you, even your closest friends, is being outsourced to a professional, a stranger. The same way someone might pay a contractor to get something done rather than asking someone they know. Therapy is overall a good thing, and it, along with medication, can be extremely helpful in assisting people through difficult emotions and challenges in their life. Therapy and psychiatry are needed institutions, part of that community I mentioned in the last video. They should be funded and bolstered and a normal part of everyone's lives, the same way we get regular checkups at the doctor or the dentist. But sometimes therapy becomes a shorthand for moral righteousness. You should go to therapy. I have a therapist. With therapy serving as such a status symbol, a badge or marker of a well-adjusted person, it becomes very easy for legitimately bad people or those with problematic tendencies, especially with enough wealth, power, or influence to be insulated from a lot of the harm or ostracism in the world or in their social circles, to say they went to therapy and got better, but then continue harmful, selfish behavior just in new shapes and with new tools for self-defense when criticized. Therapy's also not a magic solution to legitimate problems. Danny has a therapist, as Christian says. Patricia has a therapist. James has a therapist. And we still know how their stories ended. I've been in therapy and counseling for about a third of my life, most recently for the past full year, and most days I still feel broken, miserable, tired, lonely, guilty, and sometimes even suicidal. Creator, therapist plus gamer has a video about the game Night in the Woods. He talks about the limitations of therapy culture, how so often it can fail to meet the needs or even validate the humanity of someone who is suffering.
Have you tried therapy? Just go to therapy. Time to go to therapy, brah. And look, none of this is wrong. I believe in therapy. I am, in fact, a therapist. Just look at that username. But the longer I sit with this phrase, just go to therapy, the more it starts to feel like a reflexive stiff arm. A shutdown response disguised as care. A way to look supportive without having to sit in the discomfort of someone else's pain in any meaningful way, at least.
It can be too focused on procedure, on productivity, on fixing, on staying in dizzying, perpetual motion that the person at the center of it can feel ignored or left behind.
And I think that's what makes Night in the Woods so quietly powerful, is that it doesn't offer a solution. What solution could it offer? Instead, it offers a mirror. It asks, what do we owe each other? Or give to each other when no one's doing great. When the ground under our feet is rotting and no one's coming to fix it. Online, we talk a lot about normalizing therapy. What we talk about less is normalizing showing up for one another. Not fixing, not diagnosing, just being with people. Staying present through those awkward pauses, those unexpected, uncomfortable truths, the emotional mess of life.
American therapy and psychiatry can sometimes be so insular, so hyper-individual, so ironically clinical that it feels at times like the patient is a list of symptoms or a vat of chemicals and adverse reactions that need tweaking, rather than an array of emotions and experiences. I just now, at the time of writing, had a conversation with a psychiatrist where I said, sort of defeatedly, I just want to feel loved. And they went on to talk about clinical trials for oxytocin pills. No shade at all on this psychiatrist, but I feel like their response gets at the dehumanization that sometimes comes with this kind of philosophy. I didn't say I want to feel love. I said I want to feel loved, as in not chemically, but by people. There's an article in The New Yorker written by Palestinian journalist Mohammed R. Mawish about how therapists in Palestine can struggle to connect with or support the children there, oftentimes even struggle to manage their own feelings, because truly the Palestinian experience is not what therapy, at least in the Western world, was designed to address. For Akras and Jarada, traditional frameworks of therapy no longer suffice in a place overwhelmed by ceaseless suffering. Several months before the war began, they had traveled to the U.S. to complete an observership with the International Visitor Leadership Program, a government initiative that brings together professionals from around the world to foster collaboration and exchange knowledge. They came back to Gaza in June 2023, equipped with new ideas, only to soon meet a reality that has continued to defy everything that they had learned. There's no psychological manual for this, no diagnosis that makes it livable. There is a vocabulary of collapse that one learns by living through it. It begins with the grief loop, mourning relatives, then neighbors, then co-workers, then children whose names we never knew. I lost friends, then family, then my block, then colleagues I shared hunger and dispatches with, journalists still reporting as the sky falls. The mourning rotates endlessly. Now, I don't mean to suggest that what's happening to those in Palestine is equal in the scale of destruction, agony, loss, and grief to anything else I'm describing in this video, especially not my own situation. I only mean to highlight a clear limitation of therapy as designed. This is Despot, one of the best rappers ever. He pals around with Killer Mike and LP of Run the Jewels and has famously never released an album. You might know him from the song House of Bricks that came out a few years back.
This little piggy got a house made of bricks, hand over hand over hand over fist. This little piggy got a house made of bricks. Puff and puff, bitch, you ain't blowing down shit.
He has a bunch of random unofficial releases floating around on the internet, one of which is Substance D, which has the poignant line,
"How many milligrams to kill a common cold, and how many more to make you forget that you're getting older?"
That line, really the whole song, gets at the issues of over-reliance on medication, especially addictive ones, but that's not really the point of this video, to the neglect of the underlying humanity and human struggle of the person. Sometimes one's problems are far bigger than the person themselves.
No one even dares say the word therapy to her. It's not because she wouldn't benefit from it. Of course she would. It's because it's just not that simple. Sometimes you don't need a professional as much as you need a friend who doesn't flinch when you say things like, "I'm not doing okay." Sometimes the pain isn't clinical. It's systemic. It's generational. Maybe even spiritual, in a sense. And here's the thing I don't think we like to admit. Saying just go to therapy can be a way of outsourcing humanistic responsibility. It puts the burden back on the hurting person. It says, I might care, but certainly not enough to sit with you in this. Go pay someone else to deal with your pain. And sure, that might be necessary sometimes, but it's also not enough. Because therapy isn't a replacement for community. It doesn't replace safe friendships, late night walks, sitting in silence beside someone who just gets it.
What do we say to a person whose country has been genocided? What do we say to a Danny whose entire family was annihilated in a single night? What do we say to a Hinako who feels trapped between two violent, oppressive worlds and feels no sense of self or security amid it all? Therapy is not a substitute for love. It's not a substitute for friendship or purpose or safety or belonging or emotional fulfillment. And it can help people achieve or discover those things, but sometimes it doesn't, especially not in the short term. And that's ignoring issues with not being able to access or afford therapy, being matched with a therapist who has different values, understanding, or is otherwise incompatible, or just being subject to bad therapy, or stuck in a practice with a for-profit motive or regressive ideology. Ideally, therapy should work with those other forces, with love, with friendship, with larger community, not be a divorced process from them. The trauma was synchronized, Shudafa told me. It's not something they can leave behind while they're still living it, but we can try to regulate it. As she spoke to me, her tone was steady, almost hushed. In war, she said, Silence is honest. My presence, my gaze, my quiet voice, sometimes that's the entire therapy. Often, sessions are interrupted by a nearby strike. The room shakes, the door flies open, and she and her patients run. But even then, Shurafa tries to leave her patients with something, a phrase, a touch. We'll continue, she tells them. We won't abandon you. Both Sakafi and Shurafa have enough reasons to stop showing up, but they don't. They lean on each other, on prayer, on glances passed between colleagues who are too exhausted for full conversations. Sakafi said they remind each other to keep going, even when their bodies want to quit. So that phrase, she needs therapy, when wielded with the same dismissive invective as Mark spews in the pizza shop, can feel like someone is being told, just get your shit together, as I was in so many words from someone who I thought was one of my closest friends a few weeks after my dad died. I was suffering massive panic attacks, had just gotten out of a psych ward, and wasn't sure where I would be living in a matter of days. Go to therapy. Often, it just feels like being told, you're not my problem to deal with. The reason Pele manages to be so seductive to Danny is because he has extremely high emotional intelligence. He's aware, he's perceptive, he's calm, he's patient, forceful when he needs to be. It's all manipulation, but he manages it with far more tact and deft than Christian, who bumbles selfishly and short-sightedly along. Pele understands that Danny, more than anything, wants to feel held. She wants to be snug within the all-encompassing safety net of community, but she also wants to feel seen, desired, like she belongs. The quiet, uplifting love of someone who will always be by her side, physically and emotionally. Knowing that is how Pele draws Danny in. I worry that in our fast-paced, productivity-first world, we often forget or ignore that these moments of difficult, uncomfortable silence can be some of the most meaningful, most powerful, and most healing moments of a person's life. Someone like Pele or Blanc, who present themselves as willing to listen, can wield that silence to their advantage, bring someone otherwise unwilling under their wing. And when a person is deprived of those moments of humanity, of being alone together, when all the world feels empty but hostile, we get Hinako or James Sunderland who decide that retreating inward is better than experiencing the world outside. Let's take a look back at the time loop, the ending of Return to Silent Hill. James regains consciousness on the road just outside Silent Hill. He lies to Mary, taking advantage of his knowledge of her to make her fall for him and come along with him. This is awful and manipulative if we look at the effect on Mary, her will and agency being diminished to serve James's desire. But even if we look at this from James's perspective, this ending is horrifying. Reason number one why this ending is so devastating: this isn't Mary. Maybe James really did find some mechanism for time travel and he really did land right where he and Mary first met. But a Mary deprived of all the memories and lived experience that she built with James is not the same Mary that James was in love with, especially if, given the lie, he can't even admit out loud that any of those memories ever happened. Taking these different paths, especially such major ones with such massive consequences, transform both Mary and James into fundamentally different people. It's notable that, tragically, James finds Mary, or at least a representation of her, very early on during his return to Silent Hill. In fact, she's the first person he sees just outside the town, and he dismisses her because she isn't the memorialized ideal of Mary that he wants to see.
You don't find who you're looking for. You can always come back and find me. I'm Angela.
Angela. Sure.
She's lying to him too, even saying James won't find her, which is cruel, but again, Mary's already dead. This is just some lingering aspect of her manifesting as her commitment to the town at the cost of her very identity. And this unfamiliar and disheveled facade makes it that much easier for James to overlook her.
So, there's someone I care about, and I need to find her.
You won't. Floods overran the water treatment plant. When water gets contaminated, people don't stick around.
It's a nice fantasy to have a second chance, to be able to make every right decision, but the reality of that means people stop being people. They're now test subjects where everything else is a controlled variable. And if this experiment fails, how many more trials will James have to conduct? How many more decisions will he want to overwrite? I made a video a while ago about Inception, which tragically got used and abused by YouTube's automated copyright claiming system, which has always sucked huge smelly donkey balls, so I wasn't able to release it on my channel. I might go back and try to destroy it some more so that it passes copyright checks, but the link will be in the description to the master copy of the video. In it, among many things, I discuss power and control. Too much power, too much control, the ability to turn the world into whatever you need it to be whenever you want, makes reality feel meaningless and inconsequential. Godhood is antithetical to personhood. Look at Susie Bannion, who by the end of Suspiria wields control over death and memory, but becomes stolid as a result. When you have everything, you can't want anything, and that wanting is what makes us human. I read the ending of Return to Silent Hill as a descent into nihilism, being sucked into a singularity of memory so hungry and all-consuming that it envelops all a person is, was, or will be. Its hold transcends even death. This is the opposite of Klemperer's fate, where Dr. Klemperer finds himself relieved of grief and longing and guilt and regret and agony, and is an emptier being because of it. James is equally empty, equally relieved, but rather than foregoing memory, he yields to it, letting it hollow him until longing is all that's left. It seems that he's won, but while he can, force-possess Pyramid Head and kill his constructed doppelganger of Maria, this new threat is deeper than desire and guilt. The only social activity we see from James outside of Silent Hill, aside from his time with Mary, is at the beginning of the film. He's at a bar by himself and cast out as a belligerent drunk. His therapist calls him, and while it's cool that she cared enough to call, she doesn't seem like a very warm, approachable person.
I wasn't expecting a no-show, James.
I'm in Silent Hill. Something's happened here. Something really, really bad.
James, listen to me carefully. This is getting out of control.
She's really mean to James, speaking to him like a disappointed mother and violating HIPAA to let everyone know how difficult of a client he is. Also, why is she calling so late in the evening? Also, I'm not sure why her initial scenes are shot like this. Eventually the film just stops doing it and she even shows up in person. The best I could say is the effect symbolizes James's fractured reality, bolstering the themes of loss of focus, broken perception, and mental confusion. But I don't know. As I've mentioned, this film muddies its themes and metaphors all over the place, and it's hard to tell where anyone is at any given time, which is just how Silent Hill is. So I'm not really sure what these shots mean. But what I do know is that James is stuck. He's angry, isolated, grieving, yearning. By the end, chasing death as absolution, he arrives somewhere else entirely, a world where reality no longer matters. No need to find your footing if you can fly forever. This Mary isn't real, this moment isn't real, and he isn't flying, he's falling. Failing to catch a foothold of love or community, James gives in to the longing. He succumbs to memory. He's plunging at Mach speeds through a bottomless pit of sedation, and he likes it. Loneliness, isolation, There's a pattern here, and whether it begins in and ends in the mind or it's a symptom of larger systems, I think in a lot of ways the world doesn't do enough to grant care, community, and love to those who need it most. I thought this video would be a fun, haha, look at how funny Return to Silent Hill is, but honestly those videos are a dime a dozen and probably not all that interesting. Instead, Return to Silent Hill helped me realize that as much as we need and should strive to build and keep love and community, those things can cause more harm than good when misused. I also thought I'd be taking a much longer break after the last video, but when I saw Q's face pop up again, it honestly destroyed me inside, knowing that we were a part of each other's lives and now we aren't. It sucks, and I've been living with that hollowing, enervating hunger in my chest. I felt like I needed to say something in my own dumb, pretentious video essay way. I thought about deleting everything, like even my YouTube channel. I'm still in that space. I just threw out like half of my storage unit this week. I don't know why exactly. I just feel so little and so stupid. I sometimes want Klemperer's oblivion for myself, to know and to own and to remember nothing. In that vein, I probably will eventually remove a bunch of videos. I put up a poll on which 4 brave soldiers voted surprisingly in favor of me not deleting videos. We need critical support for total oblivion, guys. I don't consider myself a content creator. I don't even like the word content. It makes my tongue itch. I'm just some bored, horny dude who yaps sometimes and likes to make pretty things, or things I think are pretty for the soul. I think the internet and the world at large have an unsustainable problem where everyone's just filling space all the time, adding to the noise but not saying anything. As we've established in this video and the last, I don't like myself very much, like at all, but that comes with some benefits, namely that I've learned for the most part when to shut the fuck up. I don't need to jump on every news story and give a take just to say something. I can step back, evaluate, and decide if what I want to say is actually helpful at all. So I hope my channel and its thoughtful, albeit depressive ramblings have provided some refuge from the endless clickbait titles, sponsor segues, and soy-faced thumbnails. I've been on YouTube on this channel for over 10 years, since college, and I don't agree with my old self for a lot of reasons. Bad takes, laziness, shitty politics, general video or argumentation quality. I started this channel with Final Fantasy XIII, which I still want to revisit at some point, and I had periods of talking only about Naruto Storm and Pokemon. I've gone through periods of having intros, doing skits, playing characters, trying to be edgy, monetizing, unmonetizing, copyright strike hell. Thank you, Square Enix, by the way. Daily uploads, weekly uploads, monthly uploads, streams, speedrunning for a tiny bit, treating YouTube as a hobby, as a passion, and then as a real attempt at trying to earn a livelihood. I've emulated Noah Antwiler and iDubbbz and Video Game Donkey and Big Joel. So instead of someone finding my channel and seeing 430 disjointed, messy, themeless videos, I want there to be more of a greatest hits of at least semi-meaningful stuff. Of course, this is partly just what growing up is like, I guess, so maybe there's some use in laying that timeline bare, even if YouTube isn't so good at showing viewers a full 3-dimensional picture of its creators. So I think I will remove some videos, but I'll probably just unlist them and people can email me for links if there's a specific video they want access to. Or YouTube just unveiled a new DM feature, which is great. I have another platform I can get ghosted on. All this is just hypothetical, of course. I hate opening the YouTube studio and almost never do. You can see why my channel's been growing so astronomically. So I've got to break down that wall before I can delete or unlist anything. I do feel like I really need to take a huge step back from YouTube for a while though. I've still got the Dragon Age Veilguard script and other ideas, but a lot of times it feels like I'm creating just to avoid crying, and that gets really exhausting after a while. Thankfully, my channel's already dead, just sitting there in a ditch because I can't afford a grave spot, and those who have been here a while are probably used to not hearing from me for months, so stay tuned for more of that. I also want to get back to writing like actual stories and finishing a few that have been in limbo for years. Also, my album's out, Murder at Sunrise. It's free, it's on Spotify now too. Some people have said they really like it. Most people are too busy to care. Be part of the change. Genuine thanks to everyone who's watching or who's been following for a while. I think the mental illness video and this one are the 2 most important videos I've ever made, so it's nice to see the last one resonated with so many people. I don't want this video to come across as if I know, like, anything at all. I'm an insecure fuck and I barely know which foot goes in front of the other when I walk to the store. I just loved someone so much and myself so little that when she broke down in front of me and started insulting me, hitting me, and ultimately abandoned me due to her own mental illness, I still feel like I deserved it. And now it's like none of it ever happened. I'm relieved she's alive, I'm happy she seems okay, and sometimes still simultaneously, I feel like James, waking at the bottom of a dried up well of memory, striking at the walls in a maddening search for a way out. I also want to reiterate that I've made a lot of mistakes myself throughout the Q saga, and I live with the regret all the time. Please don't take me as some arbiter of morality or sound judgment, but I wouldn't for a moment take back any of the time I spent with her or any of the things I tried to do to be there for her when she had no one else. Like the previous video, I'm not asking for advice or insight, just talking about the messiness of life, of pathology, of emotion, of intimacy, of humanity. I don't know what should be said to a person like me, or like Hinako, or like Susie, or Patrizia, or Danny, or like James even, or fucking Eddie. Like, what the hell was his deal in this movie? Anyway, this script came out a lot angrier and more despairing, maybe more selfish even than I expected. It's not as hopeful or wishful as the last, but I hope it still resonates. And I also hope it helps those who have never felt these things understand what it might be like. For obvious reasons, I had a lot of trouble writing it or doing much of anything, really. And this honestly sounds really cheesy to include, but it feels necessary for this kind of video. If you're someone out there who might be feeling some of these things discussed, find a friend or a loved one or someone you trust. And if you don't have that, or even if you do, therapy can be helpful, even if it's not perfect. The stories of James, of Hinako, of Patrizia, of Susie Bannion, of Danny, they're cautionary tales, not to be chased or idealized, but to be studied, so that all of us can enjoy love and happiness, however brief, and so that the levees of community we've built and reinforced might be strong enough to beat back the swell of such ills and evils when they return. So we know not to take our current love, joy, stability, belonging for granted, like so many of us and those around us often do. And indeed, as he listened to the cries of joy rising from the town, Rue remembered that such joy is always imperiled. He knew what those jubilant crowds did not know, but could have learned from books, that the plague bacillus never dies or disappears for good, that it can lie dormant for years and years in furniture and linen chests, that it bides its time in bedrooms, cellars, trunks, and bookshelves, and that perhaps the day would come when, for the bane and the enlightening of men, it would rouse up its rats again and send them forth to die in a happy city. I miss her, like, a lot, but I do hope I don't ever feel the urge to talk about Q publicly again. Unless our paths converge again, there's not much left to say anyway. There's a reason I started off the last video with that one quote from The Plague. That video felt like bearing witness, a memorial to the injustice and outrage done to Q and to those like her. And it was in the midst of shouts rolling against the terrace wall and massive waves that waxed in volume and duration, while cataracts of colored fire fell thicker through the darkness, that Dr. Rue resolved to compile this chronicle, so that he should not be one of those who hold their peace, but should bear witness in favor of those plague-stricken people, so that some memorial of the injustice and outrage done them might endure, and to state quite simply what we learn in a time of pestilence, that there are more things to admire in men than to despise. In this video, however, I tried not to talk about Q too much because as much as this video surrounds her, wouldn't exist without her, this video isn't about her. This video is about me. I wrote this poem a few weeks ago, maybe days after seeing her face again. I don't know if it's any good, but it was the only way I could think to express myself at the time. I'm supposed to see it, but I can't. It doesn't seem that it's there, but everyone keeps telling me it is, it should be. I start again, branding the steps into my flesh, stitching them to nerve and cartilage, until their grooves reshape my vocal cords, until their ink stains my lungs, until their curls direct my reflex, until those lines are all I know, rote, mechanical, one, then two, then one again, in every fold and wrinkle of a vestigial memory. But to know is not to understand, and still 1,000 trials past, the end eludes me, invisible, unfeelable, broken.